What excites you about performing this new work?
Well, I think the fact that it is so new, it really is always an honor to have something written for your voice. And I'd love to be the first person to sing it. On top of that, this music is very challenging. So I've had to work really hard for it. And I think by virtue of really diving in, applying myself, I've started to discover new things about it, and it has kind of required all of my attention. And that is really neat at a time when it's so easy to be distracted by so many things. This opera really holds focus, and I think it will do the same for listeners too. So I'm kind of excited to be a part of this brand new experience.
That sounds incredible. Are there any particular challenges that you find interesting in the music?
Yes. So what I never realized before starting to work with PQ Fan was how much my sense of memorization is tied in with diatonic harmony. So I learned roles and never really thought much about it. In the last opera production I did with him, and in this one, there's not a diatonic soundscape. So I have to discover other clues in order to know where I am in the music and what comes next. And it's kind of like learning a new language. And that I always have loved languages, but it's hard. And at the beginning, you have to make mistakes. And so I think his tonal language is a big challenge that I am enjoying working with.
Nice. So, can you tell me a little bit about your character and any thoughts you have?
Yeah, so he is a Japanese governor of this Vietnamese village. And in what we've discussed so far, um, he apparently is feeling dispossessed and displaced, kind of out in the hinterlands in his view. And so he really attaches himself to this stolen horse of his, this white horse. So I always like to ask myself, what kind of person, one who has this really great post and this really great job, there's a lot of responsibility, but he only sees the negative. So what kind of person like that is like interpret situations like that? But also the fact that he bonds to this horse more than anybody in the village. What type of person bonds that way? I think there is some trauma there. And perhaps from being in Imperial Guard, maybe he's seen a lot of war and bloodshed, and there's some PTSD that he kind of therapizes by attaching his feelings to the horse, which is, of course, an animal that won't fight back, won't, try to kill him. Or hopefully, it's a domesticated horse. And so when that horse dies and his relationship with his therapy animal is severed, he really takes it much harder than I think anybody is expecting him to. So all the villagers are like, okay, we see the horse is dead. We see that you're sad. And he's like, you don't understand. This was a great transgression upon my person, upon my being. And it's really hard for other people to understand that. And I think he doesn't express it clearly. So I don't think Hakida understands it himself. But he does come up with another way to therapize himself, which is to torture others. And unfortunately, we've seen that throughout human history way too often, how people who have experienced trauma will then transmit that by committing acts of violence on others. So I think it's a very rich psychological character, and I'm hoping to bring a lot of nuance to those issues that he has.
That sounds like such a fun role to really get inside the mind of that character and bring it out. I can't wait to see it on stage. Is there any way
Yeah.
the music that you can speak to the way the music provokes that character and brings it out?
Well, so I've been in discussion with PQ Fan for a while, and one of the things that this character does is switch to falsetto. And it's quite sudden and it's quite unexpected. And sometimes it's in moments of really rare beauty, but other times it's in moments of very peaked emotions. And I asked him about this, and he said that it does harken back to Japanese kabuki theater. And so I think by using the different registers, so there's some things that are very low, some things, very middle, some things really in the shouty part of the voice, but then there's a switch to falsetto. And I think that musically it can represent his disconnection from the world around him.
Oh, that's incredible. That just sounds chilling, that navigating those switches. I can't wait. I
Yes.
cannot wait to see this brought to life, and I'm sure the audience will feel the same. Are there any
Yeah.
closing remarks you have about the show?
Well, I was so pleased to have worked with the Vietnamese American Society of Composers and Musicians in Los Angeles or in Orange County a little bit ago. As you know, I have a research interest in transformational inclusion in higher music education, but also the music industry at large. And I think it is so great to have these stories now being told by voices that have not been heard from before. And as we are on this planet of 7 billion people, it's crazy to think how many stories there are and how many stories people can tell, and how rare it is that there is space given to diverse stories from diverse backgrounds with diverse casts. So I would really like to see projects like these be replicated around the country and around the world. And I would just love for storytelling in all of its various permutations to be something that we really latch onto as we're trying to create this interconnected world, that we remember the power of it, and that we hold space open for all people. Asian stories, Black stories, European stories, Latinx stories, women's stories, trans stories, LGBTQ plus stories.
Absolutely agree with you on that. Well, it was great talking with you today, and I really appreciate your time, and I cannot wait to see you on stage.
Yeah, me too. I'm so looking forward to this.